Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Greater Manchester Stories. This episode's amazing guest is a gentleman called Paul Whitelegg, who's standing as an independent in the ward of Walkden South in Salford. So, first of all, welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thank you. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I'm trying to speak to lots of independents at the moment. So, my first question to you is why are you standing as an independent? There's parties out there you could join, you could stand for them. They would pay some of your costs, they would have volunteers to make it easier, they'd do some of the work for you. Why, like me, have you decided independence is the way to go?
Well, I've lived in Walkden South in Salford for over 25 years. And dominantly, the ward has been run by the Conservatives and the Labour. And we've always had a high turnout of voters. And it's always been very close. And if you ever wanted anything doing, you only had to go to your council. And they used to go and do the best to get what you asked for in the ward. As time gone on, roughly over the last 8 years, we've seen a decline in services, hiking council tax. When you start asking the question, what are the residents getting for the money? Um, I am proactive with the councillors, but we seem to get the same answer every time. There's no money. It's because of the Tory government, or we can't do anything because we're tied to the government with their policies. And I keep on asking myself the question, I'm paying you, the council, out of my council tax money. The residents are paying the council tax money to you, and we're asking for the service. So over the last 8 years, I've looked at what we've got, and because the Conservatives have declined in my ward, Labour have a full run of it. The councillors don't even probably have to go out and even leaflet because they're going to get in. Well, I find that quite upsetting because where years ago we used to have a lot of voters, now we don't. And this is the problem. People don't vote anymore. We have over 11,000 eligible voters. We're probably getting about 3,000 that are voting. Labour's getting in with just over 10% of that vote. And I'm asking myself, what can we do? If I stood it with a party, like you said, yes, I could get funding. I've got maybe more chance of more votes. But unless I'm with Labour, I ain't going to get nothing. And the residents aren't going to get nothing. So standing as a candidate, an independent candidate, it gives me the chance and the opportunity to do one, give a choice to our residents, and number two, be a strong voice on council for them. And that's what I am intending to do, Nick.
No, and that sounds fantastic, and I agree with everything you've said there. The only time a council works is when the parties don't know who's going to win the council election. So they raise their game, they treat residents with a bit more respect, do a bit more work, will work harder, will answer emails. But when you have a council like Manchester, where I'm from, and as a Labour councillor, I'm getting in no matter what I do, they do nothing because there's no incentive for them to do anything. They know they're going to be re-elected. So we need more challenges in the councils across Greater Manchester to put those councillors in a better position to know they're going to lose their seat if they don't work harder. So you're perfectly correct on that. And again, if you do manage to win and you're an independent, you can be a disruptor in the council because you've not got a puppet master behind you going, Paul, you can't say that. You can't vote for that. You must vote for this. Even though you don't believe in these policies, you must vote for these policies. Otherwise, we'll deselect you and you'll never stand for us again. So you're basically a puppet and someone else is pulling your strings when you stand for a party. So well done you standing as an independent. Have you started, I presume you've started campaigning?
Yes, I have. I've started some leaflet drops already. Over the next few weeks, obviously, with the postal votes going out in a couple of weeks, I'm aiming to hit as many households as I can, knocking on doors, introducing myself. A lot of people do know me in the area. I have been active in the area, like I said, even with local councillors in the past who they have been good councillors from both parties, and you can't fault them for the hard work and the dedication they've done. But like I said, things have changed, and the councillors that are in, are looking after our ward now. They know they don't have to do anything to get re-elected. It's a faceless emblem, like you just said. So yeah, I have started my campaign, and my campaign is on positiveness. What are we going to do to change things in our ward for the residents? It's pointless going on about what Labour does or what Conservatives do. I'm not interested in that. I'm a resident of Walkden South, and I will be portraying that with the residents. You know, I'm your voice. What are the issues? Most of them I see myself. I know because I live here. The Labour councillors that are in Walkden South don't even live in the ward. You know, and if you don't live in the ward, how can you represent a ward? You know, the ship's in. You know, and don't get me wrong. You know, I do speak to these councillors, and they do try their best, but they come back with the same answer time and time again. Where myself will be asking that dreaded word, which they'll all hate, is keep on asking them why until I get to the source of the problem. Is it waste? Is it incompetence? What's going on? What can we do to change to get that result and not just give the answers that we always hear?
Exactly. How can you be a Labour councillor going to your bosses in the Labour council saying, why can't I fix this? Why can't I fix that? And you get told there's no money. Well, what can I do? There's nothing you can do. So shut up, go back to the residents, tell them there's no money because we have got money, but we're going to spend it on these things because these things are our priorities. They're not your priorities. They're not the residents' priorities. They're the council's priorities. But as an independent, you can go, well, I'm not happy with that answer. And I'm going to tell everybody what the real answer is. And if I tell people the real answer in my ward, maybe at the next election, maybe they'll start voting differently because they know this is all a con. This is all a setup to vote in more party members. And I'm talking about Labour and Tory and Lib Dems and the Greens. They've all got puppet masters. They all get told what their policies are. And how can you fight for a policy you don't agree with? But that's why you become a career politician. Most of the politicians I speak to, I know for a fact, they don't even believe in the policies they're pushing. They've just been told to push them. And it's disgraceful. So in your area, I probably can guess the issues in your area because they're the same all over Greater Manchester, all the same across the country. What are the issues in Walkden South?
Well, obviously, I'm setting out 10 priorities. There's more than that that I'm going to attack from day one. And by attacking them, I mean approaching our mayor. We've got an elected mayor in Salford, as you know, and he's responsible. He's accountable for all the head of those departments, including the police, so he can get the police involved. And that's the person we need to hit directly with these issues. But yeah, I set out 10 priorities. And the first one, as everybody knows, you only have to go outside your door and have a look at the roads, potholes everywhere. You know, we don't even have an infrastructure or a plan or a process for when these are going to get repaired. We just hear we've got no money. I mean, you know, only last week I was walking down the main road just up the road from me, and there was a pothole in it that was that big and that wide. If Evel Knievel was alive today, even he would have been scared to jump it. You know, and we see this on a regular basis. And you know, what can we do about it? Yeah, we can tell the council, we can tell the councillors, but who's actually chasing them? Who's mithering them to get these things done? Because our councillors come back with the, like you said, the same answer time and time again. So yeah, potholes and roads, maintenance of the roads is one of the big priorities that we need to look at. But then look at flooding and block manholes. Yeah, you know, when we see flooding, the first excuse is climate change. No, just look at the drains. They're full. They're full of leaves from autumn, never been cleared. And then you say, well, okay, then if we had a process again and process in places that we can make sure these drains are cleared on a daily basis, weekly basis, or even inspected. That's what we need to be looking at. We then look at the general area, unkept verges, railings that are rusty, that are damaged. I mean, again, just up the road on Manchester Road here, we've got a car that's gone straight into these railings. Luckily, the railings were there to protect the pedestrians. But for months now, it's still got a plastic barrier on it. You know, nothing seems to get done. And when you see unkept verges and rusty railings, it brings the place down. People don't respect the place, and it can only go in one direction, and that's down. So we need to start looking at tidying these verges up, tidying rails up, making places safe. The other big issue we have in our area are new builds. Now, we all know we need new builds. We need more housing, affordable housing. But just to find a spot of land and give permission to build houses on it without any meaningful consultation, without even telling the residents, because They don't have a platform, our councillors, to tell us. We only find out when we start to see the bulldozers going in and start digging. And then you've got to ask the question, where's the meaningful consultation? Again, you ask the question, and it's the government's fault, central government saying we have to do it. But my answer is, hang on a minute, who in the right mind will build 177 houses, which is at the back of the old St. George's where I live, and another load of apartments just up the road from it, when we haven't got an NHS dentist to cover the 11,000 people already in our ward? We've got GP surgeries that, are oversubscribed. You can't get to see a doctor. And, if you need to go to a walking centre, we have to go to Wigan Lee to go to a walking centre. When I came to Walkden South at the beginning, I was walking centre. There was no waiting list for GPs. There was an NHS dentist. That's all gone. The question is why. We need to start asking questions why. And when we start putting new bills up and start blaming central government because it's a Labour-run council, that's not the answer. We've got to look at the community and build our community up. This land could be used to build walking centres where we can have training for dentists, doctors, local people to be dentists, doctors, nurses, on-the-job training. And it doesn't cost that much. If you're spending that money on housing, why not spend it in the community? So yeah, new builds. We need to look at that meaningful consultation and common sense when it comes to doing them. The other big one we have is congestion. I know it's the same all over, isn't it? But congestion's another one. 75% of people in our ward need a car to either get to work or is a survival for them. Now, building all these houses increases more congestion. But the cycle lanes, who said, why don't we take some of the roads up as cycle lanes? It's a great idea. Well, I've never been asked, and everybody I speak to has never been asked, what would you like? Yeah, cycling, walking, as a leisure, that's brilliant. We have loop lines for that in Walkden South and Salford. So why take up the roads? All it's doing is causing more congestion. We live at Walkden South, less than a mile to the main motorway. If you leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, it can take over an hour to go that distance, where it's idling time. People are wasting their time. It's a massive cost to the community, to the people, and to business. And that's what we need to look at when it comes to congestion. Why? What can we do? We've got a lot of clever people in Salford South, Walkden South and in Salford. And you've got to ask yourself the question, surely we can come up with an idea whether it's, having one-way systems so the roads can be widened around the area at certain times. Where it's a bottleneck, can we look at putting some money or infrastructure in there to widen it? That doesn't cost as much as what people think, especially if you get rid of the waste that's happening to put it into that. So yeah, congestion is a massive one. A big one where we are abandoned trolleys, shopping trolleys, baskets, all over the pavements, all on the roads. Wind's blowing them onto the roads, causing damage. So we need to work with local businesses to make sure this doesn't happen. People go around collecting these trolleys. Yeah, people need trolleys because they go to the bus stop with all the shopping. Yes, we understand that. But yeah, we definitely need, again, a process in place, a procedures to make sure that happen. And then we get to the policing side of it. People don't feel safe anymore, Nick, on the street. I don't feel safe on the street. My kids don't feel safe on the street. You're looking at antisocial behaviour, muggings, kids coming out of school on the loop lines, having their phones taken off them, pushed around. The traumatic events of that, so that those kids and people, it's horrendous. And it happens regularly. We don't hear it anymore. Years ago, the police used to come round knocking on your door saying, there's been a burglary, there's been this, there's been that, make sure you're safe. And that gave you reassurance because you saw somebody in authority. We don't see that anymore. The increase in burglary, serious crime. Just up the road from us only a couple of weeks ago, broad daylight, ripping out an ATM machine on a main road. Now, people who do that, they've got no conscience. They don't care who they hurt, and then just recently, the horrendous crime in Salford where, the torso had been found. It's absolutely horrendous. We also have a massive problem with off-road bikers going down the loop line, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 mile an hour, where we got dog walkers, kids on bikes, they terrorise it with balaclavas on. They bomb it up the main road doing wheelies past cars. And who's around to stop them? Nobody, no one's there. And if you've not got a deterrent, it's just going to keep on going. And you've got to ask yourself, how would I feel? What can I do to make things safe? And the answer is putting more police on the beat. When I was a kid, everybody who know the police officers on the beat, morning, noon, and night. And they were walking through the night, through the streets. And anybody who looked suspicious, they pulled them and talked to them and made sure they had a legitimate reason to be there. We have PCSOs doing that, but they've disappeared now. And I agree with one of your comments that you made about PCOs being made into police, and I fully 100% agree with that. We need proper policing on the streets, people on the beat, visual on the beats, because at the end of the day, that is how you're going to solve it. And again, when I speak to councillors and I speak to council, and they'll say, well, yeah, but hang on a minute, we haven't got as many police officers as we used to have. Well, obviously we've got none because I've not seen one. So where are they all? We've got to have a certain amount of police officers on, in these on the police force. And I look at it as a football match. If you had your 12 players and they were all in the corner and they just huddled around there, the opposite team can go straight for goal, and there's nobody to be seen. But when you start putting that team out properly with a goalie, 4 at the back, 4 midfield, 2 up front, you've got some opposition there. And if you put them right with the right experience, you can go even further and win the game. And it's all about winning the game, winning over criminals. And that's what we need to do in our community. And to do that, I'll bring forward the local police so they can have their say on the social platforms that I'll be putting forward. So I can inform the residents of what's going on, what are they doing. Because if you don't question what they're doing, they're not answerable. And it's all about accountability and answerable for their actions.
No,
And
absolutely.
again, that's what I'm going for.
Right. Well, everything you've said then is what everybody in Greater Manchester basically says as well. So it's the same problems all over the region, and I'd say the country as well. Let's talk about some of them. So let's start with the police. The police are doing better than they were a couple of years ago. The new chief constable is better than the old chief constables, but they're still not delivering the service we want. They're still, how the police work at the moment is we sit behind a desk until we get a phone call that a crime's happened, and then we turn up. Well, that's not good enough. I want you to be detecting, preventing crime in the first place. That's about being on the streets. It's about liaising with communities. It's about being proactive. It's about stop and search. It's about doing those things we think the police do. They don't do those things anymore now. I'm going to get, obviously, if I'm elected mayor, I'm in charge of the police because I'll be the police crime commissioner. I'm going to stop policing the internet in Greater Manchester. I don't care what you say online. I can't change the law, but I can deprioritise hate crimes that we won't even look into it anymore now because we won't have the time. I want to be looking into burglaries, rapes, sexual assaults, muggings, knife crime, violent crime. That's what the people want. They don't care about hurty words on Twitter and Facebook. The Offroad Bikes is a good one because I've dealt with Offroad Bikes 20 years ago in East Manchester, and we dramatically reduced Offroad Bikes by confiscating them and holding public crushings where we would crush the bikes and say to parents and everybody, if you buy your child one of these illegal bikes, this is what happens to it. You don't get a warning. It's confiscated, it's crushed, and you're prosecuted. That dramatically reduced it. But then we started introducing new guidelines to the police. The police now are not allowed to chase somebody on a motorbike if they haven't got a helmet on. So what do all the criminals do? Well, don't wear helmets. The police can't chase you. That's not a law, that's a guideline. That guideline gets scrapped day one if I'm mayor. We'll chase people on bikes. If they kill themselves, so be it. I don't want to see them dead, but I'm not handing the streets over to the criminals anymore now and letting them dictate how we run our police service. No, they kill themselves, they kill themselves. And then if we're looking at antisocial behaviour in general, because that's one of the big things that affects everybody, antisocial behaviour. That is about prevention and early intervention. That's about making sure we deal with the small issues today so they don't escalate into the big issues tomorrow. Everyone with a knife today was committing antisocial behaviour a couple of years ago, but we ignored that, so they progressed into something else. If we can nip things in the bud, we reduce serious crime in a few years' time. Some of the other things you mentioned, potholes. Now, potholes, there's two issues here. First one's about money. and councils will complain we have no money. Well, you might not have any money, but how much do drivers and motorists pay to drive? What are you doing with all the money from road tax, from insurance, from petrol, from diesel? What are you doing with that money? Because you're not spending it on the roads. And when you do spend it on the roads, I think the average life of a pothole is 12 months before it's a pothole again. Are you telling me in the modern world we can't fix roads and potholes that last a decade or last forever? Why are our potholes only sticking plasters for a couple of months or for a year and they're back again in the same place, the same hole? How incompetent are we? Why can't we pay a little bit more to fix the hole and it's fixed forever? Incompetence is rife throughout the councils. You talked about flooding in drains. That is the main cause of flooding in cities, is a lack of drainage because they're blocked with leaves and rubbish and no one cleans them. Again, that's directly related to the incompetence of the council. And then you talked about, well, I've dealt with trolleys as well 20 years ago in East Manchester with a big Asda. Trolleys being dumped everywhere. I don't think things have changed, but those days it was something like £100 fine to the supermarket. So that's what we should be doing. We should be fining supermarkets and saying to them, this is your belonging. It's not your fault someone took it out of the supermarket. You know, I understand that, but it's your responsibility. So therefore, you either stop them taking them out of supermarkets, or you have patrols picking them up daily. Because if we find these trolleys, we're going to fine you £100 per trolley. And I'm going to go to the press and I'm going to tell the local people that this supermarket is part of the problem why we've got a declining neighbourhood, because they don't care about this neighbourhood. They care about taking your money off you though. And we need to embarrass not only councils but businesses if they're the way they run their business are affecting the lives of residents. But it takes a backbone to do this. That's why it takes an independent. Because how can a Labour councillor criticise Asda or Tesco's if Asda and Tesco's are giving the main party a couple of £1 million every year? Well, you're not going to do it, are you? But an independent can do it. An independent isn't answerable to anybody apart from the voter. So all the problems you mentioned are solvable. Some of them take money, some of them don't take money. Fixing the police costs no money, because we may have less officers than we did 10 years ago, but if we're recruiting rubbish officers and we've got rubbish managers and we're not dealing with the crimes the residents want them to deal with, well, what's the point of having loads of officers? They're still not going to do the things we want them to do. We need to start holding top civil servants responsible until they start delivering the services we're paying for. And if they don't deliver them, personally as mayor, I'll be naming and shaming top civil servants. I'll be ruining some of their careers, and that'll be unfortunate. But that'll make sure every other top civil servant in Greater Manchester goes, I better start doing a better job. Because that crazy mayor of ours will name me at the BBC, will name me in the Manchester Evening News and ruin my career. And I'm not prepared to have that done to me. So you junior managers, you better start working harder. You better start working better, because I'm going to hold you responsible, because the mayor's going to hold me responsible, and I'm going to take it out on you. I'll take that as a win.
100%, Nick. 100%.
Well, hopefully, I'll say to people now, check you out. And if you live in Walkden South at the moment, you would be my main choice to vote for. Independence over all the parties. Good luck at the election. And hopefully when we both win on the 2nd of May, because that's the election, people, 2nd of May. And don't forget, you need ID, photo ID to vote at this election. So check out what ID you need. If you've not got ID, your local council will provide you with ID free of charge. So you've got time to get that off your council. But make sure you vote. And even if you don't like me, and even if you don't like Paul, still go out and vote for someone. Because unless you start taking part in this electoral process, then you're part of the problem. So I don't care who you vote for, really. Make sure you vote for someone. Do you agree with that, Paul?
I do, Nick, 100%. Like I said, you've got my backing for the mayoral's job, and I definitely know you're going to get it with those policies. And I wish you all the best. And I will be promoting on my sites as well. Thank you very
That's
much.
no, thank you, Paul, and good luck to you in your campaign as well. And I'll speak to you soon.
Goodbye. Thank you.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.